you have agreed to participate in the presentation in some way, so I appreciate that. Today is a real kind of interactive presentation. I've come to you with a problem that I'm trying to solve, and it's related to the study that Alfred mentioned that I'm working on with Doug Reisner. We're doing a 2-year international study of teaching artists in theater and dance. So Doug is coming from dance, I'm coming from theater with a little bit of dance in my background, but I'm also very interested in the role that place takes in both the training of performers as well as the creation of community performance events. Because I'm so interested in place, and because I'm interested in the work of teaching artists in theater and dance in Detroit, what I brought today is an examination of visual art practices, so I'm kind of stepping outside my field intentionally as a way to better understand kind of some of the aesthetics that influence the making of creative works in this place. So in other words, I'm coming in not with the ambition to kind of forge this into a super scholarly article, but rather to inflect the study that I'm doing in theater and dance with a little bit more information from other disciplines, and in this particular case, looking at art practices. So I have a couple of questions for you, and then I have employed a number of you to help me in the reading of various things, and so I'm hoping that it will be a dialogue all the way through. The presentation itself is not very long. It's not a super talky presentation because it doesn't represent kind of findings and conclusions, but rather me grasping at various images that my partner Richard Haley has created, and also grasping at various kind of particularly like newspaper articles that have tried to figure out or contain or explain some of the community art projects that we're going to look at. Okay, so yeah, so it's images of happiness and a very much preliminary observations on the art of revitalization in Detroit. And the first thing I have for you is some questions. So if you would, let me give you little pieces of paper. And I'd just like you to think about what color you associate with happiness, and why do you think you have that particular association. So think for a moment. You may very well have more than one color, but just take a moment, because we're going to be thinking about color, and we're going to be thinking about shape and pattern a little bit as we examine some of these community art projects. And so before we begin with that, I just want you to think about how color works in your imagination. And as specific as you can. Is it like a light orange, a warm fuzzy orange? Is it a deep dark red? What color is it for you? Once you're done, if you just take a moment and share your response with someone sitting next to you, and you might need to cluster. In fact, those of you sitting at the far end of the table, it would probably be awesome just to come this way a little bit. You could better.
Please come in. You got to join the group.
Just answer the question of what color they associate with happiness and why they think they have that association. What color did you say?
I should have yellow.
Yeah. Yellow for feather.
Bright yellow.
Bright yellow.
Well, the red one's an orange. Whenever I see a yellow house, I love the fall happy house. I don't know why.
And to me, the yellow was because of the sun.
Yeah, certainly the sunshine.
Was it the yellow?
Yeah, sunshine.
I don't know why, but that's
Just a real bright, warm yellow.
Oh, just
a warm
great.
color.
Rare women.
Yeah.
The light.
Some of them I wonder.
Oh, it's a light. Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. And how many chose blue? Oh, you had 2. More than one color. Easy to have with. Oh, yes. And purple?
She did.
Purple? A couple of purple. Orange? Oh, you said 3. 3. happy colors, Alfred. You're like all over the palette.
Well, they are,
Very
and
good.
all of them lift me. I mean, that's cool.
We're early, we're off.
Anything else that I missed? Did anybody choose red? You had red was part of it, or green? Nobody was for green. Okay, a little
We
bit.
thought you were to choose just one, so we were really.
I'm sorry, I chose 3 because I like
That's
all
okay.
those
That's
things
okay.
lift me, all those colors I chose.
Okay.
Did you
Are you queen?
Sorry, you said 1.
You had green, Meta.
You're queen.
Yes, okay, so Meta had green.
Forgive me, my first one was sky blue. I'll just stay with that.
My first reaction was to differentiate happiness and joy.
Ah,
They mean very
yeah.
different things to me. So I went, okay, she wants to talk about happiness.
And what for you is the distinction between happiness and joy?
I guess joy is more fleeting to me. Happiness is a more, happiness is more
More everyday?
sustained. It's everyday and heavenly. It's a little bit more Tibetan monk-like
Okay.
happiness.
All right. Good. Well, I just wanted you guys to kind of personalize this, and I'm quite fascinated. I didn't know what to predict. I didn't know if everyone would have their own unique color, but there's certain families that we associate with, and obviously yellow is quite a popular one. Green, not so much of a popular one, but it still exists as a possibility. And there are those colors that we go to kind of immediately, and then there's those colors that we go to secondarily or tertiarily. And so I think it's interesting. So thank you for that. Okay, so the kind of the genesis for the project for me in terms of looking at community art was a community mural that I was passing fairly frequently. It's on Kenilworth, which is just off of Woodward. The reason that this particular mural fascinated me is because it felt like it was always in a state of kind of perpetual unfinishedness. But there was a kind of an intentionality around the unfinishedness. Somehow this mural for me embraced a kind of a rough draft happiness. Meaning that we have these kind of distinctions between, as Julie is saying, between happiness and joy, the sense that happiness is a thing that is meant to kind of continue on for more than just a moment, that perhaps joy is kind of like the moment of birth of the child. You have this joy, and then it goes into the hard work of actually raising the child. That happiness is this kind of sustained thing. But then I felt as though happiness in some of the community art that I was looking at, and I was really looking at art that was either led by a kind of a professionally trained artist, but that which employed community artists, or maybe in which a professional artist wasn't central at all in the organizational process, but simply just the result of a community effort, community endeavor to change the landscape in some way. So I really was kind of enchanted by this one because of the purpleness, and I kind of dropped into purple as a new possibility for happiness. Usually I associate purple with whimsy, right? Or kind of the fantastical. So Barney was purple, and other magical creatures are sometimes purple. But I don't necessarily kind of go to purple as a kind of my first draft happiness. So I like this idea of a rough draft happiness that's being cultivated in these community art spaces. I'm also calling it sometimes like a provisional happiness, or kind of a tentative happiness. Like, let's try this. Let's do a wash of color over this brick surface, and let's just see what that does. So I was kind of fascinated with that. So this was the beginning of the project, and I also love the kind of perpetual unfinishedness of the garden, right? Often these community murals have a garden that's attached to it. And again, that's quite an intentional thing. But with the winters that we have, and then also the kind of do-it-yourself initiative, you have strong community presence at some times, and then you have kind of community absence at other times. So at times the garden is like rich and robust and full of crazy tomatoes and cucumbers, and then months and months and months go by, and it appears to have been abandoned, only to be like taken up again months later. So I like that sense. There's something kind of honest about it, and this is where I dove into my project. So for this particular presentation, I want to look very kind of quickly. We'll just skate over the surface of things, looking at 4 artist-led initiatives in Detroit and Hamtramck. Some of them are more intentionally kind of community engaged, and then one in particular, Hamtramck Disneyland, is just an